Good morning, everyone, and welcome to this webinar on Facebook marketing with Emmanuel Joshua from the St. Louis Small Business Development Center. My name is Eleanor Chatterton. I'm a librarian at the St. Louis Public Library. I'll answer any questions you have in the chat. Thanks for joining us. I'm just going to turn it right on over to you.
Great. Yeah. Hey, everyone. Mike, like Eleanor said, my name is Emmanuel Joshua. You can call me Manny. That's what most people call me. And I'll give you a little bit of my background as well, and then we can kind of jump into some good content. So for me, just so everybody knows, like she said, I work for the Small Business Development Center. I'm 28, married with an awesome wife, Molly. And my background is in marketing and branding, but I also have a background in team building and culture and that kind of stuff. And so I kind of, whenever I talk about marketing or Facebook marketing, that's kind of my bend is like, how do you build a culture, and how do you build a foundation for something that can last for the long term. I am, outside of what I do currently, an entrepreneur. So me and my wife, we do build e-commerce, like online assets. But my first ever business was actually a digital marketing agency. So this is very up my field. This is very up my alley. I don't speak out of inexperience. I speak out of maybe too much tinkering and too much pixels and all that kind of stuff that goes on in the background of digital marketing. So I'd love to, even if while I'm talking here, I'd love for if you have a goal, like if there's a specific thing you're trying to accomplish, I'd love for you to hit the chat and just share like, hey, this is what I'm trying to accomplish. This is why I'm in the class. Like, what's your goal? I'd love to see that in the chat here while I wrap up this introduction. So you can feel free to throw that in so I can kind of talk from that filter. So what we're going to talk about, though, if I was to sum it up, this is called Facebook Marketing 101. I kind of named my slide deck how to crush it on Facebook. But I think that the question that a lot of people are asking is like, we have these tools, we have Facebook, we have, Twitter, Instagram, like all this stuff. Obviously this is Facebook specific, but we have all this stuff. And then I have my business. How can I use, these resources to my advantage? How can I actually properly engage the world around me when it comes to these things? Because you're right, like there's a lot of opportunity out there, but it's like, how do I actually properly engage it? There are poor ways to go about it, there are proper ways to go about it. What I found is that a lot of people, what they do is, because they don't know how to properly use social media platforms, they end up like using them excessively or using them a lot, and they kind of get jaded and think like, oh, this doesn't work, or this or that, or but it's just because they're not using proper, I like to say, the proper psychology and methodology. Maybe this is a good note to start. Social media, Facebook, really all it is, it's really just people skills multiplied, if that makes sense. It's you're interacting with one person, and it's how you treat people. Facebook is just an extension of you and your philosophy around how people operate. That's really all it is. And so when I talk about social media, a lot of people think that social media is different than in-person interaction. It is and it isn't, but it isn't in the same sense of that, you are, talking to a lot of people at the same time. It's having a very large conversation, but it's the same in the sense of, the same principles apply when it comes to doing one-on-one conversation with people and all that kind of stuff. So anyway, I like seeing these goals. This is awesome. Quality leads for insurance business. That's awesome. I'm loving this. There we go. Documentary series, more visibility. Okay, need to generate some work. This is great. So all of you have specific goals. And so notice this, a lot of people when they use social media, and I'm going to get, this is kind of part of my intro, and I think this is important. All your goals are specific. I'm going to use, I'll use is it Joanie Ward? Joanie?
Joni.
Joni, perfect. So I'll use yours just for an example. Getting qualified leads for an insurance business, that's very specific. Because if you think about qualifying a lead, now you're taking it from I want everybody to I want only the people that fit what it is that I'm bringing to the table. And so that's using social media in a very specific way. And so part of what we're going to talk about is, hey, how do you get specific? I think before you start going and using social media, a lot of stuff has to be done on the back end, both here and with the content that you're creating and everything like that. So we're going to talk about that. Because my main goal of this is if you can get to the point where you can, if you can get to the point where you know exactly what you're trying to accomplish through social media, if I'm being honest, that's the main point. Now we'll talk through some execution and what that looks like. But if you can get to the point where you like actually just know specifically what you're trying to accomplish and why, that's a huge win. Another thing before we get into this is Facebook marketing 101. It's not Facebook marketing 10,000, right? It's like this is basics. And so we're going to talk through some basics and in the future, if there's good feedback and stuff like that, a Facebook marketing, probably a more advanced call will be made available for you. And so at the end of this, that's why it's important. At the end of this, I'm going to send out a follow-up sort of like what's what I'm looking for. We call it a satisfaction or survey, but really it's really just a follow-up for you to tell us like, hey, how did this class work for you? How was it? And all that kind of stuff, and give some feedback. That feedback allows us to know, hey, like this is what we could talk about in a more advanced class, because there's a lot of stuff that we can talk about. And so the feedback, the survey that I'm actually going to send you guys at the end of this is actually for you. It's not for us. Like we do need it, but it's mostly for you, so we can offer things that are more that can, you can tell us where you want us to go. And we can run this as deep as y'all want it to, so you can get everything that you want out of this class experience. So with all that being said, let's get it going. I'll kick it off and start. And there will be time at the end, by the way, for some questions. So if you did have questions, let me know. But we're going to be very interactive here, and I'll try to keep this to the presentation portion here. I'll try to keep it to about 35 minutes. We'll have some interactivity. And then if you have questions afterwards, we'll have some time for that. So crushing social media in your business. Okay, let's talk about it. So first of all, I do like stats. I'm a stats guy, even though some people would beg to differ, because I also have squirrel syndrome. So it's like a mixture. But anyway, so just so you know, like the total number of active social media users, right? There's 3.96, and this is 2020, by the way. The stats haven't come around for 2021 yet, but 3.96 billion that use social media. 51% have like I forget what the penetration is. Users versus total population. Yeah, so it's 51%. The annual growth, it's like 10.5%. So every year, about 376 million people join social media. And so here's the point. The point isn't to like just be like, oh man, like that means I need to talk to 3.96 billion people. That's not the point. The point is there's a lot of people using social media. Like that's the point. And so there is an element to where not every business needs social media, but there is an element to where, if you're going to use it, just know that there's people there, and just got to know how. Now, another thing here is that like 3.96 billion people, like maybe write this down as a thought. If you have a business, your customer is not everybody. Everybody is not a demographic. So that's one thing that a lot of people think when they're like using social media. They're like, I want everybody. It's like, no, you don't. You don't. 3.96 billion people. And let me give you actually, I won't give that example, but you don't want everybody. What you want is to just understand that a lot of people are on social media, but then really the hardest part of the entrepreneur who's using social media is to figure out who their audience is. Out of that 3.96 billion people, who is actually my audience? And it might be 10,000 people. And that's okay. It might be a very small fraction of the population. That's okay. I've seen very successful businesses form up where their population ended up being 0.6% of the population. And that's not a lot, but they built a multi-billion-dollar income through 0.6% of the population. Does that make sense? So you don't need everybody. So that's a myth of social media. You don't need everybody. You need the right people. Okay. So let's talk about social media. Let's talk about what it is and what it isn't. I think that's important to, again, this is Facebook marketing 101. This is basics, right? And so let's talk about what it is, what it isn't. So first of all, social media is not a media. Okay. The key is to listen, engage, and build relationships. That's David Alston. He's a social media expert. So, but the whole point of social media, it's actually to build relationships. It's not to go and spam people and get people to buy products from you. That's how you don't get people to buy products from you. I don't know how many of you, I've heard this analogy. How many of you have ever fed ducks before? And again, I'm starting with the mindset of Facebook marketing. A lot of people like whenever I do this talk, a lot of people are like, oh, can you just talk to me about Facebook? I'm like, I am. Trust me, I am talking about Facebook. I am, promise. But I've heard this analogy with the duck before, where how many of you know like ducks like bread, right? So like ducks enjoy bread. But that doesn't mean you throw a whole loaf at a duck, right? Just because they like bread doesn't mean you throw a loaf at them. And so a lot of people are like, oh man, like I'm just going to spam people and I'm just going to throw loaves at these ducks. But what happens when you throw a loaf at a duck? It flies away. It's gonna, but you'd be like, man, but you're supposed to like bread. It's like, yeah. However, they don't like bread given to them that way. You gotta build a proper relationship and give the duck the bread in the way that the duck will receive the bread. So it's the same thing. This is why knowing your demographic is really well when it comes to social media, because you got to know how, not just what you have to offer, you also have to know how they receive things. You have to know the messaging, you have to know the thought process, you have to know the wording in a way that actually will draw those potential customers onto you. So a lot of it is you got to know how your audience thinks. So first you have to know what your audience is, but then you have to know how they think. That's a very, very important thing when it comes to business. A lot of us, when we're entrepreneurs, because we're so excited about what we're doing, we just think that the world wants to know exactly what we want to say, which is not true. The world actually doesn't really care about you and your business. Like nobody cares about you and your business. You're the only one probably who cares about you and your business. However, people do care about what your business can do for them. And so understanding how your audience thinks is important, because then now you can know what you really bring to the table for them. And then you can know how to actually package that in conversation, which is very important. So what it is, it's a relationship building tool, okay, which is very important. You want to build long-term relationships with your customers. Another thing is that it's an ongoing conversation. That's very important too. A lot of people want just immediate results on social media. If I'm being real, that's not real. Actually, how about this? That's not prevalent. It's rare. It happens, but for the most part, it's an ongoing conversation. It's you learning how to communicate with your audience and building it over time. And so I always tell people that social media should be a long-term game for you. Social media, it doesn't mean that it needs to take 1,000 years, but it does mean that it does take at least a little bit of time to get established and all that kind of stuff. And the sooner you start working on it, the better. Okay. But it's a long-term branding asset, which is very important. That social media is not I get the whole, everybody wants to go viral. But social media is more of a long-term thing. If you go viral for one day and then you dip for the rest of your life, in my opinion, you've lost. Even if you got 10,000 sales in a day, and then for the rest of it, you didn't get any, in my opinion, you've lost, because what's the point? A bunch of money in one day, or a lot of money, or whatever it is you're trying to get long-term. I think long-term is a little bit better when we're talking about business. So what it's not all about you and your product. It's not a promotional dumping ground. Okay. A lot of times people use hey, buy this for me, get this for me. This is how I can help you. This is me. Hey, you know me, I'm pretty awesome. It's just all we do is talk about us. It's not a promotional dumping ground. Right. So there has to be a give and take, not just an ask. There's a really, really, really good book. I'm not sure if it's on my slide deck here. So just in case, I will recommend it right now, but it's called Jab, 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 Right Hook by a guy named Gary Vaynerchuk, Vayner Chuck, Chuck. Okay. Good guy. So, but he talks about that in this book. Okay. And so it's not also not something to be taken casually. If you're building your social media platform out properly, there's a lot of intention that comes behind it. So, okay, so that is what social media is. Okay, and then we'll finish up the proper mindset, and then we'll get into probably some more strategic, tactical things. Some of you are itching for that. You're like, oh, stop talking about mindset. Let's talk about how to do things. Okay, so anyway, but it's not all about the likes. I have friends and clients, because I'm an entrepreneur, I'm in a lot of these spaces. I legit have friends who make multiple millions of dollars every single year. They have 400 followers on Instagram. I legit have friends that have 1.1 million followers on Instagram and maybe make like $10,000 a year through their platform. It's like not all about the likes. I liked, Joni, what you were saying. This is the key. Joni, you said your goal is to generate qualified leads. And so what actually is going to create income for you, if you're talking from a business standpoint, is qualified leads or qualified likes or qualified followers. It's not just anybody. Because if Saname, your business is international trade, if I remember correctly, something like that.
Right, that is correct.
Yeah, international trade. If somebody is living in small town Missouri and their total audience is small town Missouri, they don't care about your business.
Sure.
It like does nothing to their life because it's not international. So, if they follow you, they're probably not going to interact with your business that much, even though they follow you, right? Because they're not qualified. Doesn't make them bad people. It just means that like that's just not what they want. So it's not about having a bunch of those. It's not always about the number. So don't get deceived. Okay. It takes work and time. So avoid the going viral mindset. The going viral mentality. I get it. It's popular. I get it. It happens. But a lot of times when you see virality, that's actually built on years and years and years and years of non-virality, if you will. So lots and lots of work. A lot of times these people work like they're like, I don't know if you follow soccer, but Lionel Messi said, I've worked 10 years to become an overnight success. And so there's a lot of that kind of thing going on. But then also a lot of it too is those flash in the pan viral things. They typically die out just as quickly as they started. And, those people actually don't even become successful long term. So anyway, so it's not going to be perfect at once. Here's a quote that I really like. Done is better than perfect. Done is better than perfect. That's like very important to understand because a lot of times we're trying to look for the perfect strategy. And can I tell you, there's never a perfect strategy. There's only an evolving strategy. So where you start, a lot of times people are like, I just can't get started on social media because it's not perfect yet. Can I tell you, like, it will never be. Even if you have a perfect strategy right now, you start building it over time, you're going to look back 2 years from now and be like, that was a terrible strategy. Like, even though at the time you thought it was perfect. So there's no such thing as perfect. So done is better than perfect. And if you can get that like in your mind and you can start taking action today, or just start taking some sort of action, that's how you get the ball rolling. It's about 1% better every day. So hopefully that mindset piece was helpful. It's really all quality communication and everything like that. So anyway, hopefully that was helpful. I do like talking about mindset a little bit ad nauseum, but I try to keep it. Actually, that's one of the shorter mindset segments I've done. So, so you're welcome. Anyway, but strategy. How many of you are excited to hear about some strategy? Right? Maybe in the quick chat you can let me know. Like, oh, thank God you're done talking about mindset. I want to build my profile. Okay, so that's important too. But anyway, so I have a 3-step process. This is kind of what I like to walk people through in a three-step. Oh, thanks, Katie. She likes the mindset. There we go. Yeah, but exactly. But here's why we're here. We're actually here. The mindset doesn't mean anything if you don't have a process. Okay. A mindset is unworkable without a framework, and a framework is ineffective without a mindset. So I like to do both. Okay. So mindset's very important because that should give you the principles as you're driving through this process that we're talking about. But there's a 3-step process. First, the goal. Got to know the goal. That's very important. We'll talk about that. Then the pieces. all of your pieces are going to be different. All of your goals are going to be different. Therefore, then the plan, all of your plans are going to be different. 100% of you are going to have unique goals, pieces, and a plan. Okay, because everything you're doing, it's not just that your business is different from one another. Because your business is different and your personality is different, your goal inherently is going to be different. Because your goal is different, you're all inherently going to need your own different components. It's all going to be different. Okay. And then because of that, the plan is also going to be different. So it's just good to know that there is no one size fits all social media plan. There's no one size fits all anything, I know they have I think the only thing that's one size fits all is those, but they never even fit. Those socks that they said one size fits all, but I think they stopped selling those because they never fit me. Anyway, it's just beside the point. So you can tell I'm frustrated from that. That's why I go. So 3-step process. Okay. All right, let's go. So the goal, here's the first thing you gotta know. Where do you want to go? What are you trying to accomplish? That is extremely important. Joni, I'll keep using you. You mentioned qualified leads. Okay, what is a qualified lead to you? Okay, and start defining that. That's one of the things, like me and my wife in our business, when we're looking for business partnerships, we actually have acronyms built around the stuff. Like our mentors taught us how to really understand how to think about this stuff. For us, our ideal partnership, we call them heroes, right? They're humble, eager. We have things around that, but humble, eager, responsible, and open. And then we have things that define what that looks like to us. But who are you? What's your goal? What are you trying to accomplish? Okay, are you trying to create a lot of people like, oh, I'm trying to make a lot of income. Okay, how much income? Okay, like how much money do you want coming in a month? How much money do you want coming in a year? How many followers are you trying to have? You see what I'm saying? Like, what is your goal? And it has to be a little bit defined. So that's more of the personal goals. So it's good to get very, very clear on your goals. But here's one goal. Who's your intended demographic? Like when you send out a post on your social media platform, who is your intended demographic? Again, everybody is not an okay answer because not everybody is going to be fit. So again, Joni, I'll use you. I'm just going to keep you in the whole time. Okay. So qualified insurance leads. So all of a sudden, if you're talking about somebody who's qualified for, insurance, you've probably disqualified everybody who's under the age of 18. Right? Let's just be real. Maybe their parents are not the client. That's fine. I don't know a bunch of people who are under the age of 18 who buy insurance unless they're super responsible. And I'm making assumptions here, but now maybe you want to have higher end policies as opposed to lower end policies. So maybe now it's like different income brackets. And so now what you're doing is you're starting to whittle away at the demographic. At the population to find who is your client. This is the legwork that I promise you nobody wants to do. But you got to know and got to have a list of who is your demographic. Very important. Okay. Because based on that, now you know, what do you want to communicate to them? What do you actually want to communicate to them? And then the third question from there, let me see what's on this next slide, actually. Okay, there we go. Third question from there is, how do you want them to feel and interact with you? Okay. So when you know who your demographic is, this comes right before, like a lot of people, their first step, they like to just build posts out. And by the way, we're not going to talk about Facebook ads here. That's more of an advanced class, but I'm going to talk about really what I'm going to give you the framework for is how do you actually have a page that's cohesive, a page that makes sense, a page that communicates well, and that can actually be built up for the long term. That's the goal of what we're going to accomplish today. Okay. So how do you want them to feel interact? So first of all, let's take a couple minutes here and just 3 to 5 bullet points of your intended demographic. Let's take a couple minutes here and just write that down. And I'll wait. I'll be very patient. And I'll talk you through some things. Maybe, and if you guys want to, if it would help, you can throw the type of business that you have in here. And maybe I can give you a couple of, what I would think maybe would be some of your demographic. So obviously, I know, Joni, I saw yours. where, for you, depending on what you're trying to accomplish, what type of policies, right? You're looking at different, and you probably already know this, but you're looking at different income earners, probably people who have maybe dual income, who can have like larger policies. And again, I'm just spitballing, probably people over the age of 25 who are maybe more responsible, generally speaking. There we go. Correct. Spot on. There we go. There we go. CPR and heart saver. I could not even tell you what that. I don't know what that means. Like you have a CPR business? Like you teach people CPR? Is that what that means? You can talk if you'd like to. Oh yes. Okay. Perfect. Okay. So if you teach people CPR, okay. Young female active traveler. I like that. There you go, Jerry. Photographer. So if you teach people CPR, maybe I mean, I don't really know, but maybe now you're looking specifically for people who, who own or lead, different places where they have a bunch of lifeguards, like YMCA's or something like that. That could be part of a demographic. It could be, like you could plug yourself into like the EMTs, like different hospitals, stuff like that. Maybe your demographic is a little bit more specific because maybe you do more contract work. And that's something that yeah, I don't know what BLS means. You're way smarter than me. I can tell you when you use acronyms. Like, I have no idea, but that's awesome. So you work at a bank, like to increase millennials and Gen Z viewers. Okay, no, that's good. That's good. So that's your age range, right? So you have millennials, you have Gen Z. So you kind of know that. Now the question to you, Anna, Craig, it would be more like, okay, now what do you want to communicate to them, right? What do millennials and Gen Zers value? For the most part, it's not like saving for retirement. I'll tell you that. I think you probably already know that. So they want experiences. So maybe what you're communicating to them is like, hey, like prepare for your next trip. It's that's what they want. They wanted to hang out with their friends. They want to be able to eat at this fancy restaurant. They want to be able to, they want that life. They don't necessarily know how to be responsible, but hey, maybe how you get them in the doors is preparing for your next trip, preparing for this, like help them have the experience. And then once they get in the door, now you can teach them how to hopefully be fiscally responsible. So this is good. Okay, so this is good. I'll move on from here. Yeah, no problem, man. And again, if you guys have any questions on this stuff, feel free to email me afterwards. I'll give you my email. I'm going to follow up with that survey. But again, our goal is to actually help you in real life with your actual business, like not just like talk about mindset. I get a lot of mindset, but we can move on. So hopefully this segment was a little helpful. And then you just got to know after who your intended audience is, like what do you want to communicate to them? And then here's a big one. How do you want to make them feel and interact with you? Going back to you, Anna, like you want Gen Zers and millennials, you want them to feel a sense of adventure, and you want them to feel a sense of excitement, right? They don't really want to feel a sense of responsibility. Unfortunately, to younger people, they feel responsibility is like, no, unless it's tied to excitement and adventure that they would like. Like they'll be responsible if they know that it's going to go towards like a trip or it's going to go towards that sort of thing. And so you just got to tie it to what they want. And so how do you want them to feel? You want them to feel like, man, if I interact with you, I'm going to be able to do this. Like you want them to have a little bit of semblance of hope and optimism interacting with you. And because they've been jaded by, this, like I don't want to say the system, I'm not like some sort of conspiracy theorist, but they've been jaded by, 401ks, like, and they've been jaded by, Social Security. They've been jaded by not being able to retire, and they know that that's in their future. So if you can help them have a hope in a future and like say, hey, like you don't need that. You can actually still be successful if you work with us. That gives them that hope and that optimism. And so that's the feeling you're trying to elicit in them. Same thing with Joni, same thing with everyone else who was talking here. There we go. Oh, clothing business. Got you. Yeah, you want people to know that they can be clothed again. It's fine. I'm just kidding. Okay. So, all right, moving on. So hope that was helpful. Your intended demographic, what do you want to communicate to them? And then, and most importantly, how do you want them to feel and interact with you? Okay. That's very, very important. So let's move on. So we'll go to the key pieces here, and you can, if you have questions all about that stuff, feel free to ask after. The key pieces. What do you need to get there? Now, this is now where we're going to get more into specifically content, because this is important. What you're trying to accomplish is going to drive your content selection. Okay, it's going to drive your content selection. You are not going to be. A lot of people, they start with the content, but they don't even know what they're trying to accomplish. So now their audience is like, what are they trying to accomplish? Right? And then they just leave them alone. And then once you lose people, it's over. By the way, spamming Facebook messes up their algorithm, and they'll actually start to show your post to about like 0.4% of the people that watch you, because Facebook's business is viewers. And if you're causing viewers to run away from Facebook, they will decrease your page's visibility pretty much on the fly, and it's game over. So this is why having good content, appealing content, relevant content is so important. So key pieces, what do you need to get there? Okay. First of all, your story. You got to know your story. Okay. It doesn't necessarily mean that you need to be sharing your story every 2 seconds, but your story is going to come through your content probably more than anything. Okay. There's a really good book called Start With Why by Simon Sinek. If anyone's ever heard of that book, Start With Why by Simon Sinek, where he talks about people don't buy what you do, they buy why you're doing it. Okay. So people buy why you do things. People buy a story. Think about it this way. If I came up to you and I'm like, hey, we're both on a car lot, me and this other guy. I say, hey, buy this car. It's nice. It has, nice features, massage sheets, heated seats. You can go to space in it. Great. Phenomenal. Now you go talk to this other guy and he says, man, you know what? I used to be, this is maybe a very dramatic example, but like I used to be like homeless, and man, I found this dealership, and he took me under his wing, and he taught me how to actually be a productive member of society, and like actually taught me how to like create for myself. I mean, I'm just super happy to be here and have the opportunity to sell these cars, because now I can take care of my family and my kids. And yeah, so like, hey, whatever you need, like if you want a car, like just let me know and I'd be happy to serve you. Didn't you feel emotionally tied to the second guy, even though it was just me talking on the screen? Like you felt that. There's a story, because there's a story attached to the what, right? So people talk by why you do things, not what you do. So you got to know, like, what do you do beyond what you just do? Why are you doing it? What's your purpose? Where did you begin? Where are you going? International trade. That's the story of, I want to bridge nations with I know this is for your clothing business, sorry, but okay, so maybe if it's for your clothing business, because I know you're Tsunami, you're a worldwide serial entrepreneur. So maybe your clothing business is like, man, I like started this brand because I wanted people to feel comfortable in what they wear. I want people to feel like they can go around and they feel important and they feel special, and it doesn't have to be that, but it's like, why should people be wearing your clothes as opposed to somebody else's clothes? Does that make sense? Why do people buy Louis Vuitton? Because it makes them feel fancy, makes them feel important. You know what I mean? There's a feeling. Nobody just goes and buys a $500 belt. Let's just be real. Like, come on, dude. It holds your pants up. Like, let's just be real. But why do they buy it? Right? They buy it because it gives them some sort of feeling of, importance. You know what I mean? So why do you do things? What's your purpose? Where did you begin? And sometimes is where you're trying to go. What's the goal of what you're trying to do? Maybe Joni, maybe it's like, hey, I want to, give millions of people in my lifetime that feeling of security that when they're gone, everything's going to be okay. Whatever. Like maybe that's where you're going, but it's a story of like, what are you trying to accomplish? And people buy the adventure. Does that make sense? People buy where you're going. So the second thing is your specific audience. We kind of already talked about this, so I'm going to move on from here. But you got to know what your audience values. How do you know? Sometimes you got to go out and actually talk to people and find out what they value, right? But this is so you can package your communication in a way that your intended audience can understand and digest. Okay, so this is all about more the wording and the typing, not the content itself. But this is more like when you put copy up. That's what it's called, copy. Like when you just put that blurb on top of your post or just whatever. So you can package in a way that your intended audience can understand and digest, right? But then this is important. Then it's your content choices. Okay, so I don't want to move on too fast. So hopefully I'm not. but you got to define the type of content that best fits your brand. So maybe you are like pictures best suit you. So maybe pictures like I don't know, I saw like let's see, I saw like a, let's see what type of business I see here. Maybe like a bank. I saw the bank, Anna. So maybe like a picture of like a young person, you know, sitting across the table in a bank, smiling. Maybe that's more your content, right? Maybe it's a picture. Does that make sense? Some people, maybe it's a video. Maybe videos work really well with you. And everybody typically does some sequence of all of them, but maybe it's videos. Like maybe Joni, maybe it's testimonials of people who like the feeling that you gave them, and they do 30-second videos of like, man, I'm so happy for Joni because XYZ, you know. Maybe it's videos. Sometimes for people, maybe it's blogs, right? I think I saw somebody here with a let's see, yeah, there we go. Lupus awareness. Okay, so that could be a mixture of things, but maybe it's, and maybe that's videos, but maybe that's also blogs as well, of just like long type form where you're like, where you are making people aware of the effects of lupus, or you're doing a lot of more educating. Does that make sense? So like sometimes when you're educating, typically blogs can be helpful, right? But the whole point is like what type of content best suits your brand, and you pick that and you stick with it, you know. And guess what? If you start using pictures and down the road you want to do blogs, it's okay. Life goes on. You can always change and adjust, right? So that is here we go. Yes, there we go. I like that, Latanya. That's good. It's a capital yes. I like that. So yeah, you can always switch and you can always adjust down the road. So is that helpful? Okay. Now, is it true that Facebook suppresses posts with external links? Facebook is not a big fan of you taking viewership away from Facebook. That is very true. So there's ways that we can talk about that a little bit. There's ways you can work around that. But for the most part, a lot of, you want as much as your content as possible to be internal, but they suppress it more if you spend all your time putting on external links. Does that make sense? If you're like mostly just putting content on there where people view, and then one post out of like 10 has an external link, it's okay. But if it's like every single post has an external link, they're like, bye. Like, you know, Backstreet Boys, bye, bye, bye. You know what I'm saying? Anyway, so, all right, throwback. Sorry about that. Was that helpful? Did that answer your question, Katie? Cool. Yes, gotcha. Okay. All right. So your branding templates. Okay. So this is important. So now that you have the content choice, you have your intended audience, what you want to say, your content choices. Now you want consistency. Okay. So this is where templates come in. So here's one thing. If many of you have probably gone on Instagram or Facebook and you've seen very cohesive pages. You've seen very cohesive. I don't even think, I think I have an example of page here. I meant to actually do that, but let's see. If not, I'll get one for you eventually. So it's all good. Okay. So you want to create templates that are easy to repeat and slightly tweak. So if you have like a video template, let's say you're doing testimonials, you know, you want like a consistent frame with like, okay, this is maybe it's your business logo in the bottom right corner, consistent frame, consistent style, consistent length, consistent type of shot, so that people, you want to become predictable to your audience. Okay. And so it's the same thing with pictures as well. You know, having some sort of predictability. One, that's going to save you time. It's going to create continuity in the eyes of your audience. Now, here's the thing. Can you change templates over time? Yes. But starting somewhere is better than nowhere, right? Done is better than perfect. That's huge. Done is better than perfect. Okay. So what this could look like is a branding template, you know, having, you know, plug and play text. This is just an image example. Plug and play text with a brand logo, you know, brand colors. But it's just like basically like, and then you could take something like this and you can repeat it over and over and over and over and over and over and over again. Does that make sense? All I'd have to do then is just change a little bit of the text, change the name of the person. Okay. And now it's giving me, I can literally go on, I can now give you some platforms to use where you can actually like be good at this stuff. A good one, by the way, is canva.com. I don't know if I have this in this slide deck. So many of you have probably heard of Canva, but I'll put it in the chat right now. Canva.com is a really good place where you can go. Yes, exactly, Katie, it is. Canva is awesome. And it's a great tool where you can go. And what I do is I actually go and I'll make like 100 of these at a time. I'll sit with myself. Now here's the thing. Nobody likes to do this. Oh, I don't like doing it either. But take 2 hours out of your life, okay, and sit and make 100 of these, okay, of different ones. Does that make sense? And now what you really have is a year's worth of content in this space. Does that make sense? And now you can just plug and play for the rest of the year. And it's very, very helpful. Okay. So anyway, so brand colors, all that kind of stuff, very important. Okay, so then another one is complementary content. You can actually borrow content. I'm really big on this, okay? Not only do you not have to be, but you also don't really want to be the only content producer on your page. And what this means is that you can actually spend some time discovering pages that are complementary to yours and share their content on your page to add value. So let's say you're talking international trade. I keep going back to that. I know you're talking about your clothing business right now, but actually let's go. Okay, I can do both. I can do both, Tsunami. Okay, thank you. He has a lot of grace with me. Anyway, so international trade. So sure, international trade is like part of obviously that's its own thing. So maybe you don't want to share another international trades business, but maybe if you're trading food internationally, let's say that, then maybe you want to share content from a business that's trading materials internationally, like metal or something like that. Maybe they put something really cool up and it's just it's not the same, but it's complementary. It's kind of in line. It's like, man, I love seeing all the international trade going on. And you post something that a steel business is doing, going international and connecting the world. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's the kind of stuff where you didn't even have to create that content. You just have to share it and put a little blurb on. And it just helps so much. So does that make sense? You can find, so I actually would spend time with people. If I had a client, a social media client, back in the day when I had my business, I would say, hey, like, why don't you take a day and go through Facebook and find like 10 to 20 pages that are complementary to yours that you'd want to share their content. And that actually, now on top of that, the more you share their content too, the more they see you're sharing their content, the more they want to share your content. And now you go back and forth, you start to create a lot of networks of relationships, not just with customers, but also with other, publishers, business owners. So make sense? Okay. All right. So is this good? Is everyone good? Am I losing anybody? Anyone falling asleep back there? No, you're doing good. Jerry, you're having a great time. You're smiling like crazy. I like it. I'm having a great time watching you have a great time. So we've talked about the 3-step goal, right? So having your goal, having the pieces, and then having the plan, right? So this is more where the plan is going to come into play. Executing is very important. Okay. And then we'll get into some Q&A after this and with some suggestions and everything like that. So, so executing your plan. Once you have the content that you'd like to post, you got to create a plan. Okay. This is important. Again, I'm talking to you guys about social media as a business owner. A lot of people, when they think social media, they're like, just post. That's it. And that's it. But there's a strategy behind this stuff. Being a business owner, how many of you realize that when you became a business owner, there's a lot of stuff on the back end that you're like, I didn't even know that was a thing. And then it's like, wow, now I actually have to do that. Like, and it's just like, it's way different being a business owner than a civilian, a regular civilian. And there's nothing wrong with that either way. It doesn't really matter, but there's just more things you have to consider when you're running stuff. Like, for example, Eleanor, you run the library, but had you been to a library before?
Of course. I'd been to libraries all my life before I started. I would definitely not say I run this one, though.
Oh, that's okay. Well, you run it in my eyes. So but you had been to a library now that you work at the library, it's way different than just being a consumer of the library. Now you are a facilitator of the library, and there's a whole different view that you have. You're like, wow, I didn't even know it worked that way. I didn't even know all these pieces went into my childhood experience of going to a library. And so it's the same thing. A lot of people don't know all the work that goes into the experience of going on a Facebook page, or going on. Does that make sense? But now you are understanding the back end of it. So welcome to the matrix. So anyway, once you have that content, they like to plan around. So now you got to have a plan. So there's a lot of people, they set up their calendar in weeks, consistency, daily, weekly posts, themes. People have themes on specific days, etc. So for example, I'll give you an example of a typical, this is a very typical social media week. Everybody see Motivation Mondays. Okay. All right. So Monday, posting a picture or something that is just inspiring, like, oh my God, boom, blows your mind. Okay. Then on Tuesday, I don't know, it's like a tip Tuesday, right? Then Wednesday, maybe it's just something funny, over the hump Wednesday, whatever. Then Thursday, maybe it's Testimonial Thursday, right? You have somebody who's giving a testimonial. Then Friday, Fun Friday, right? Maybe it's something cool that your business is doing, that's maybe fun, or maybe that's for the community or whatever. And then maybe you rinse and repeat that same week over and over again. But the whole point is this, what is your consistency around social media? Like it's going to make your life easier when you know, hey, this is what I do on Mondays, this is what I do on Tuesdays, this is what I do on Wednesdays, this is what I do on Thursdays and Fridays. And it's just going to give you a lot of consistency, and you can tweak it for sure, but it allows social media to become a predictable game for you, right? To where now you could even get to a point where you are setting stuff up in advance, and you're scheduling these posts in advance, to where, hey, I'm just going to set up 4 weeks in a row and see how it goes, right? 4 weeks of Mondays, Tuesdays, Wednesdays, Thursdays, Fridays, and it will just start, kind of going on autopilot. And now you can just watch how people interact with you and everything like that. So does that make sense? So there has to be some sort of plan and some sort of execution. Don't be haphazard. Take the time to plan your work. I think that's where a lot of people kind of fall short, is that they don't plan their work. Does consistency help with post viewership? Yeah. 1 second. So to answer that question, I'm going to pause. I said 1 second to myself. I'm going to answer that question. Does consistency help with post viewership? Not necessarily. I think that what consistency does, though, for you, the entrepreneur, is it helps you understand what people actually want. I like being consistent so that I can tweak along the way, and I'm monitoring every step of the way. I'm saying, okay, people interact with this more than this, interact with that more than that. People don't interact with that, that's gone. They interact with this more, let's do that twice a week. And so I'm just kind of tweaking. And what it does is eventually over time, if I'm consistent enough, it does help me increase post viewership, but not all at one time. But I will say that Facebook does favor people who are consistently posting, but if they're consistently posting relevant content, that Facebook actually has in their algorithm, they actually know how to look at the readability of your post. They look out for keywords, like if someone's like, buy this, they typically are just monitoring what they're doing, and they are typically suppressing salespeople who are just going on there just to sell. They're looking at the quality of your posts. They're looking at how centered it is, how the branding is. Like, they actually know everything about your content. And then they have algorithms that are designed to see how good it is. Because think about it, their business is views. Your business is views on your page. Their business is views totally. And if somebody has bad experiences with Facebook, they're just going to leave Facebook. And so Facebook doesn't want that. So they want to make sure that you have a consistent posting, but also good branding and everything like that. So does that make sense? There's a lot of things that go into post viewership. And so that's a really good question. But yeah, you definitely want to have, for sure. You definitely want to have content that you create a plan around. So this is where you think for yourself as a business owner, how do I want my social media weeks to look like? What are the things I want to post? What are the things I want to talk about? Yes, that is including the text within the graphics. Danish, that's a good question. That does include the text within the graphics. So anyway, okay, so that is your plan. Okay, pro tip. It's a pro tip from me. Take it however you like. as early as possible, hire a professional. Okay. I'm just serious about that, because social media, if I'm being real, is a full-time job. If you really, 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 really want it to work the way you want it to, it's not a full-time job, like 40, 50-hour work week. But it is worth paying somebody, even if it's just a couple $100 a month. It's worth paying somebody to do that kind of stuff for you. Um, and now I do understand a lot of people like, I can't hire a social media person. Nothing wrong with that. If you can't hire a social media person, then don't, then just like, it's totally fine. Do what you need to do while you're increasing your income. And sometimes social media is something you want to do down the road. Maybe it's like, maybe down the road, it's like, okay, I'm going to build my income to this level. And then once my income is at this level, then I'll take this piece, this chunk of it, and I'll hire a social media person. Does that make sense? So sometimes that's the move. It doesn't always have to be all at one time. I think that's the important thing is, and you have to believe this, you can build your business without social media. I know that's like taboo in these days, like, but I had to tell people that there are multiple ways of developing a client base. There's direct and there's indirect. And so social media is more of a means of like, it's just the digital space, right? But you can also build your business just through organic referrals, like just in one-on-one type places, like having people refer their friends, having people do this, having people do that. Like there's other ways to build a business, and then you can build that to a place where it's big enough to now you can hire a social media person. And as long as you're keeping up with content along the way, and you are taking videos, you're taking pictures, you're doing all that kind of stuff along the way, then you can effectively build your business without social media, and then you can hire a professional. So there's different strategies involved, even in when you start building a social media business. So hopefully that's helpful, but I would hire a professional. And once you have the templates that seem to work, because this is where you yourself, you can create templates and all that kind of stuff. Now you can just pass that on to somebody who is a professional, and you can say, hey, this is the kind of stuff I like. This is my typical social media week. This kind of content I like. And you can have them take it over, and they can either maintain it or improve the process as well. But that's just a tip. That's what I really like to share that there. So anyway, so that's kind of it. I mean, I can answer some questions here. There's a lot of back end when it comes to building going into social media ads and going into there's a lot of stuff more that we could talk about, but this is just the basics. The basic is, hey, know your goal, do the work of understanding your demographic, know your pieces. What type of content do I want to put together? And what kind of content do I want to use to actually interact with people? And how do I want people to feel and all that kind of stuff? What's my story? Where am I going? What am I doing? All that kind of stuff. And then afterwards, it is, the plan. What's your plan? And that is going to help tremendously when it comes to, building a social media, presence and platform, if you will. So anyway, so that's all from here. And so let's do this. Can you guys, if you want to, you can ask a bunch of questions, and we can do that for a little bit of time here. Can you show this there? Okay, who do we got here? Okay, what's up, Joe?
Hi. So I am working on a true crime documentary, and so we post a lot of video, and we tend to want to post that to our YouTube channel and then share that link through Facebook. If we are consistently doing that, is that seen as an outside source? So then those posts will get not as much viewership. And if we want all of those views to end up in the same place, what's the best way to go about that is my question.
Yeah, sure. No, that's a good question. So if I understood correctly, you're doing a true crime documentary and you share your content through social media and through Facebook, and go ahead.
Yeah, we post trailers and like little behind the scenes clips to get engagement, and then we're releasing the episode in October, but right now we're trying to build an audience.
Got you. Okay. Yeah, so it really just depends. So I would say that as you post things, so this is where knowing your demographic is very important. Um, because if you're posting stuff and your demographic is interacting with your content on Facebook, um, then typically Facebook has no problem with that because that means that people are interacting and they're engaging. Does that make sense? Um, if all you're doing is posting link after link after link after link after link, then sometimes it can be viewed as not that positive. But it just really the tough part with Facebook, the answer to most things is it depends. And it changes so very often. And so what I would say is just like I would focus on if you're posting some really good relevant content and you have like some good um some like a docu series that you're trying to run or something like that. I mean, you can mix it up. It doesn't always have to be a link. Maybe you take a screenshot of something you're doing and you post it and you put some good wording in there and say, hey, who would like to see what happens at the end of the scene, or who's excited to see this document, this series, or whatever. But it's more of an image. And if you do that a few times and engage in different ways, and then go ahead and post links in one out of every like 5-ish or 3-ish posts, then I think you should be good. Especially if people are interacting with you. Like, do you have people that kind of comment and all that kind of stuff?
Yeah, it's mostly friends and family. We did some paid ads earlier this year that did well, but throughout all 3 platforms that we posted the trailer on, it got about 6,000 views. 60% were organic, which is great, but we're looking to expand that, and we'd like all of those views to be on one video instead of across 3 different videos. So I was just wondering, but it sounds like if we just posted it to YouTube and linked it to Facebook and Instagram, we would be okay as long as we're not only always constantly doing that.
Yeah, you'll be fine. I think
Okay.
like that's yeah, you should be good as long as you're doing that. And then when people comment, so another thing that I didn't mention is interactivity, is that Facebook will actually show your post to more and more people who the more you interact. So if somebody comments on it, that counts as one comment. If you then reply, that counts as 2 comments. Every single comment, including yours, counts as 1. So that interactivity, if you have like 10 people respond and then you respond 10 times, that's 20 posts. Facebook loves that. Their algorithm is like, oh my gosh. So part of it is you interacting. That actually helps with visibility a lot. And so as long as you're doing that and it's relevant, engaging content and all that kind of stuff, then you should be good. And it's a process of keeping on doing it over time. Strategies will change over time. And by the way, just so everybody knows, I'm going to send a training follow-up right now. So if you could, take that like a couple minute survey, that would really help. If you could, really help us with that, that'd be absolutely incredible. So, anyway, any more questions? Anna, you said, what are your thoughts on Hootsuite? Hootsuite is it's great. Hootsuite, Buffer, they're really good platforms if you're talking about scheduling things out. Facebook has a built-in scheduler now, so that also helps. But what I would say is if you're using Hootsuite to be lazy, I wouldn't do that. I use it as a way to put stuff up and then monitor. A lot of people, they set and forget. Nothing wrong with that. But what's better is setting it so you don't have to keep on reposting it, but that should free you up to, now that you've scheduled posts for like the next 2 or 3 weeks or whatever. Now that can give you a chance to just like focus on looking at the analytics. Does that make sense? So you're seeing what people like, and you can just poke your head in the analytics and stuff like that. So a lot of people set and forget, and then they don't even understand what their posts are doing. But again, the whole point is you want to increase the quality of your conversation. So as you post, see who's interacting, pay attention to who's engaging with what type of content, and try to replicate the engaging content as much as possible. Okay, so is there a way to see the analytics on a personal FB page? Only on a business page. Personal FB pages, Facebook pages don't have analytics built in. So, which is good. I mean, I feel like I'd see all the people who unfollowed me and unfriended me and all that kind of stuff all the time. So probably hurt my self-image. So just kidding. So anybody else have a question here?
Yeah. Hey, Manny, what's the third F behind your head there? I see
Oh yeah,
faith, focus, and
forward.
forward. Okay, good. I didn't want to miss a step there.
I appreciate it. I'm like, you got good eyes there. I saw your question, but I was like, I don't think I mentioned faith, focus, or anything like that. So forward. That's good eyes. Yeah. So that's kind of our me and my wife. That's kind of our 3-word mantra: faith, focus, forward. So,
I got you. Yeah, good. Full speed ahead.
Yeah, 100%. So
thanks, huh?
I appreciate that. That was good. You caught me off guard. So anybody else have any sort of questions or anything like that regarding anything?
Hey, Manny, this is Joni.
Hi, Joni.
Hey, I just want to thank you for all the nuggets you shared with us this morning. But, me being in the insurance business, the things I focus on are know me, like me, trust me, and then engagement. And so I'm trying to figure out how to build that into the part where you talked about consistency and the themes, like Motivational Monday, blah, all those things that you mentioned, Tip Tuesday. Just trying to figure out how to work those into that consistency component that you talked about.
Yeah, for sure. So I mean, and this is stuff we could probably follow up with. Now, did you register through the library? Or did you register through SBDC?
I registered through the library, but I want to learn more about SBDC as well.
Right. So what we'll do is I'll send. I'm going to send a follow-up email here, and then if you could. Eleanor, if we could work together and get all the emails of people who are here who registered through you.
That's right. Sure will.
And then what I can do is I can send an email to everybody here. And then what we can do is thank you. And what we can do is we can I'll send a follow-up, and this is stuff that you can, now that we have each other's email, we'll now be able to go back and forth, and we can set up one-on-one consultations with this stuff. We are a government agency, so like that means that you don't have to pay to use this. Saname, we've had a couple sessions together. That's how we know each other. And again, we're still going to be following up and stuff like that.
Yes, we did.
Good. Yeah. So it's good. So we love this kind of stuff. So Joni, we can come together. What I'm saying is I'll give you a brief nugget here, then we can come together. We can build a strategy over time as well. So the consistency factor is this. It is because you're so right, by the way, Joni. I mean, I love what you just said. I don't think a lot of people understand that good social media is built on a foundation of trust, because every good relationship is built on a foundation of trust. There's a saying, I think it was Napoleon Hill, who said that there's no relationship that can last long term without mutual benefit. And so what that means is that we are trusting each other, we're adding value to one another. A lot of people, when they have a business, they feel like now their ultimate goal is to take. They don't understand the give. The foundation of entrepreneurship is adding value. The foundation of entrepreneurship is you add enough value that people will actually see it and reciprocate it. That's what my mentors always taught me. I have a lot of mentors that make a lot of money, and a lot of people think like, oh, the money is everything, but they'll tell you out of their mouth, they're like, it's because we add a lot of value to people. We made their life a lot better, and they just saw the value and they reciprocated it. So a lot of entrepreneurship is about giving. And so to your point, I love how you're talking about, the trust and piece. So how do you build that into consistency? Well, you build it into consistency where it's like, you think about, okay, let's say an idea of Tip Tuesday, let's say whatever. What can I give away for free that people would see a lot of value in, and that it would benefit their life? That doesn't have to be your services. That's the best part about social media, is that you don't actually have to give away your services. So you don't actually have to waste time, which is really nice. But it's like, what is an actual tip that I could give somebody that would actually enhance their life, whether or not they did business with me? And so let's say, for example, I don't know do you work with, like, what type of policies do you work with, like universal life policies, that kind of stuff?
Final expense, mortgage protection, IULs, FIAs,
Cool.
long-term care.
Cool. Perfect. So sometimes people don't even know like anything about that. They have no concept for how any of that stuff works. Like, let's say, for example, like mortgage protection, people have no idea the value of that. Or sometimes, and you know this better than me, I'm not going to speak out of pocket here, but sometimes there's things you can do with insurance policies that aren't directly used for an insurance policy, right? There's variable things that you could do. So for example, I do have a universal life policy, and one of the things that you could do with that outside of just life insurance is you could actually use that, and you can, I mean, you probably know this already better than me. I'm going to speak out of pocket and it's going to be totally wrong, but I could actually take a bunch of money that I have and not know what to do with it, and I can put it into the universal life policy and kind of use it as a bank. And I had
Absolutely.
yeah, so, and I had no idea about that until my insurance provider told me that and said that, and I was like, whoa, that, I'm like, that adds so much value. But he didn't say that to convince me to do business with him. He said it because he's like, hey, this would probably help you based on where you want to go in life. I'm like, oh, that's a good point. And it did. And I do more and more business with it. And I refer more people to him because he had so much in my life. And so I think a lot of people, they're trying to give minimal so that they can get more business. They're trying to like almost like give you a little bit of a carrot. Where for me, what I found is that very successful business owners is that they'll give you the bag of carrots. So here, take it, you know. Now they still got a truck of, you know what I'm saying? So, but they'll give you enough to satisfy some sort of need. And so think about that. Like what do I know about my, and another thing too, and sorry for going long here. But hopefully this is helping everybody. Another thing too is sometimes you take for granted what you know about what you do. And you think because you know it, everybody knows it. And so you don't even see the value in what you can add. You don't even see the value in like, you're like, oh, of course, if I say this, it's going to be common knowledge. No, it's not. Common knowledge to you because you study it and you do this. This is your thing. This is your craft. So a lot of things that are common knowledge to you would blow somebody's mind. Like that universal life policy, I freaked out and he was like, why are you freaking out? You should know this. I'm like, I don't know this. I didn't know that. So it's just, you got to think through, what did I not know about what I'm doing now that blew my mind when I found out, and then start sharing that kind of stuff. That doesn't mean that people are going to go and not need you. They're still going to need you. And in fact, if you give away a lot of value, people are actually going to want to do more business with you because they now feel this person actually has my best interest in mind. And you can build that into your content with like maybe a tip Tuesday. Maybe you get a lot of testimonials of people who did work with you, and then you can start posting that stuff, and now people can start to see all the value that you add, and over time you can build that into your plan. So does that make sense?
Yes, thanks, Manny.
Mm-hmm. Are we going over time here, Eleanor? Is this a good time to shut it down?
It's up to you. We can keep going if you want to. If you want to answer Tsunami's question about, is it better to have your own website before posting on Facebook?
Is it better to
We've
have
got
your own
time.
website before posting? Okay, so good question. Sometimes. Sorry to do the sometimes thing again, but it's just honestly like, so Facebook in essence is trying to compete with websites. Does that make sense? So Facebook is actually in direct competition with websites sometimes. So it's just one of those things where you can have your website on your information and all that kind of stuff. And you can, but just consider your website as an external link. That's all it is to Facebook. They don't care. They don't know if it's your website or not. They don't really care. So as long as everything you post is on an external website, you'll be fine. That's just the kind of rule, but it doesn't really matter if you have a website or not. In my opinion, I think it's just like, am I posting good, relevant content, and am I helping Facebook have a lot of viewers, which is what they want, and am I posting relevant content for the people to engage with? That's kind of it at the end of the day. General rule of thumb. So does that make sense? Okay. So does anybody else have a question? And if not, then we can call it a day. And I think
It's been a good day.
Sounds like we're good. I think it has been a good day. So here's what we'll do. We'll call it. And what I'm going to do is I'm literally sending right now, I'm sending I'm going to send in, actually, maybe not right now. I'm going to send it in like 3-ish minutes. I'm going to send a follow-up. If you could do that, that would be extremely helpful, because what it would do is it would allow us to, keep on doing these classes and allow us to keep on, I guess, for lack of a better term, providing you with better and more relevant and more advanced content as we go. So with that being said, appreciate y'all for tuning in and staying in, and have a good rest of your day.
Yeah, thanks everybody. And if you registered through the library, I'll be sending your email to Manny so that you can get that follow-up information as well and
Yep.
connect.
Yep. And I'll reach
So
out.
thanks.
To all of you.
Thank you.
Thanks.